Hi, everyone, and welcome to podcast Talk with Legal Mind. I'm Mirzua, and today I'm hosting my guest, Varvara Arutina. We are going to talk about how to become solicitor in England and Wales. But before we dive in the topic, we're going to take a step back and make a short introduction and talk about Varvara's legal career.
Good to see you, Sima.
I'm really happy to have you here. So we have this chemistry,
Definitely do. Thanks for inviting me. I'm very excited about your podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming. So, short intro about you. Varvara graduated from Lomonosov Moscow State University. So she acquired her first legal education in Russia. Around 12 years ago, she moved to the Netherlands, where she graduated from European and International Law Business master's degree at Leiden University. Meanwhile, she was working in international environment, including arbitration court and also international law firm.
It's the Brau Blackstone Best.
Yeah. Now you're like having a successful international legal career. Around 2 years ago, you qualified as a solicitor in England and Wales. Wow, bravo. Oh, and that's why you're one of the guests. You're the only guest who will tell a little bit about this road and just chill with me. Yeah.
Thank you for the introduction. I'm happy to share my experience and the path for qualification in England and Wales. If you have more guests on this topic, it would be actually also great, because when I was pursuing the qualification, I couldn't find anyone in a similar situation. I mean, with the exemption from the second part of the exam specifically, I will tell about it later. But yeah, the more information aspiring solicitors have, the better. So
yeah,
it's good to share the knowledge.
Yeah, I agree. So I think this is very important to mention that we decided to make this format as a discussion. So basically, you're in the role a person who already succeeded in this qualification. And I'm a person who at one moment was considering to apply for this qualification. But before we dive in, what is solicitor road for international trained lawyers? I just want to talk a little bit about you. So tell us a little bit about your role, your areas of experience.
Okay. Yeah, as you mentioned, I lived for 12 years in the Netherlands now, and I graduated from Leiden University. I've always been focused on arbitration ever since my studies. So I was really happy to get an opportunity to work at the Permanent Court of Arbitration after my graduation. At some point, I focused on commercial and corporate law, worked at a corporate service provider firm here in the Netherlands. And then I managed to find my path back, steered back to arbitration. And then I joined the Brau. It's an excellent Dutch-rooted but international law firm here in Amsterdam. I spent around 7 years there at an arbitration litigation department. So I actually qualified when I worked at the Brau, and the firm supported my qualification both financially and in terms of resources, and gave me time for that. However, as I think lawyers do, lawyers who work at law firms do, then at some point I realized I would like to continue working in-house for various reasons, but primarily I wanted to focus on a specific industry and be more in touch with the product, with teams, rather than sort of jumping from case to case. So last year I joined an international US-focused IT startup as a head of legal. So far, it's been, going great. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, it's really amazing background. And so thank you for sharing it. And let's dive in then in our topic. And I think it's pretty connected to what you told me. So basically, your law firm where you were working sponsored your UK solicitor's qualification in England and Wales, right? And it means that like your employees saw value in this qualification, because like I want my podcast and my guests, even if they have legal background, it to be oriented for a non-legal too. So just to understand what a solicitor qualification at all, like what is it?
Yeah, that's a right place to start, I guess, from the basic terms. Well, in England and Wales, law graduates pursue either solicitors or barristers qualification, or solicitor and then later barristers, so that they can practice reserved legal activities that are reserved specifically for those qualified. What, of course, made this qualification more widely known outside of the UK is that it can be pursued by people who did not study in the UK and who do not necessarily work there. So I think that's how, also for the value, of course, of English law, which is widely known and reputable, and it's important in the international business, but for the fact that anyone can basically, with a certain attitude and resources, get this qualification. That's what made it known, I think, worldwide.
Yeah, so it's true, because at one time I was considering to apply for it too, but I have not. It's another story, another topic for another podcast, right? And when I was researching what legal route I have in order to level up my career and what qualifications I can acquire, solicitor route was one of it. And I think one of the benefits was that I don't need to have UK degree, because UK legal education is hell expensive.
Yeah.
And you need to really pause your life, move there in order to study. Master's degree varies 1-2 years. Also, you can go for bachelor's degree. It really depends what route you choose, but nonetheless, if you don't have grant or scholarship or whatever, it's super expensive. And for me as a foreign trained lawyer, it was one of the biggest advantage that I can just apply, of course, pay costs associated with exam fees and buy some prep courses. I found out that this new SQA route was proposed in 2021. So it's around 4 years ago. And I think that one of the reasons, post-Brexit consequences, UK just introduced the insured legal flexibility, and it also allows to attract international talents. SQA aimed for giving this opportunity for international talents to come. But I very often hear and see that it's not just enough to have this qualification in order to land a job.
Yeah.
Because when you're acquiring or you're pursuing some qualifications, you really need to see what's the benefit, whether you will be able to level up both from professional side and also from financial one. Yeah. So, and I think my short discussion about it led us to the question why people consider solicitor qualifications. And one of the reasons which we mentioned, it was that UK degree is not required, and it really saves a lot of money for many applicants. But we shall understand that it's a route which allows only to enter it if you're a foreign trained lawyer. So you need to have a work experience in order to apply for it, and foreign license active, right? Why personally you considered to apply for it? It was your employee's decision, or maybe a work requirement, or?
Yeah, in my case, it was a combination of factors, but at the time when I applied, it was not a requirement of my employer. I actually found out quite randomly from a client's lawyer, that there is a new route to qualify, and that there is an exemption potentially that could work for Russian qualified lawyers. And then I just started looking into it, thinking, oh, that's interesting. Also, at that point, I think I reached a certain comfort in working in my role. I was already a senior associate, and I just felt like I knew quite a lot to feel comfortable. But then that also meant that I was looking for a next challenge, because we lawyers cannot just, I think, sit still. Maybe it's personal, yeah. Challenges. So of course I decided to, not go for a short course or a conference, but I was all in into something very difficult. Of course, I thought about the matter of prestige, because I think it's an important consideration, although maybe not everyone would admit it, or it's not that common to say it out loud. But in fact, we do mention when we talk to fellow lawyers, oh, are you qualified? And, we do a little assessment in our head, I think, just to, show who is cooler and who is maybe it's the wrong approach. But I think people do think about prestige in matters like that. And of course, my employer also welcomed those news, because I think at that time, they also started realizing that from insurance perspective, it's quite important that all lawyers within the firm are qualified, because it does create certain uncertainty in how to handle certain matters, because with qualification, you do get certain protections as an employer as well. I wanted to learn something new, and this was like quite a topic to learn. So like I wanted to broaden my expertise. I had an impression that this would, of course, boost my CV. So I thought, okay, that's a good thing to bear in mind. So that's to some of my considerations back then. And I didn't know whether it would be difficult. So in a way, I thought, we could try, we'll see how it goes.
I think it's important to mention that in Netherlands, they have approach when there is road for lawyers and advocacy. For example, it's very common in-house role when you can practice law in-house and you don't need this bar admission in the Netherlands. And that's why a lot of foreign trained lawyers who acquired some master's degree here, they are viewed and can also compete with the local, I would say, applicants on the market. But of course, I would say in international community, because like if you're going for specifically Dutch company, which is focuses on Dutch law, you won't be able to compete with them because you don't have enough credentials in order to practice Dutch law. But in an international environment, you can do so.
And here, just to add, maybe you're very right on the point that it's in the Netherlands, the situation is quite good in terms that you can find, as a foreign qualified lawyer, you can find a good job in-house. Like there is no really like protected market sort of for Dutch in-house lawyers. With law firms, it's very difficult. However, I will not stop praising my previous employer, De Brouw, that they always been into, at some point even focused on hiring foreign lawyers, understanding that this is, especially in areas like arbitration or regulatory practice, it's not about the qualification, it's about the skills and the knowledge that the person brings. So especially earlier, De Brouw was the place to like a go-to place for international lawyers with ambitions to work at a law firm.
Yeah, it's nice. It's really great when like there's opportunities for foreign trained lawyers in the Netherlands.
Exactly.
I also want to discuss a little bit about the process and procedure in order to apply for solicitor qualification. What the steps shall foreign trained lawyers to do in order to apply for it and afterwards successfully admit it?
Yeah, so basically on the, like in general, that's not a very complex process. There are two major steps. It's the first part of the solicitor's exam and the second part. They're called SQE1 and SQE2. SQE1 is a knowledge-based test. That's the one that requires the most preparation, when you need to learn what the laws of England and Wales are and their application. And the second part, SQE2, is the skills assessment. And there you would have to prove that with the knowledge you acquired and shown in the first exam, you can actually practice as a lawyer, meaning you can talk to clients, you can address the court, you can basically behave in all the situations that a lawyer can find him or herself in. For example, a client comes in and tears, it's a probate matter, and then you have to calm the client down, offer some water, and then give legal advice. I know it from friends who've passed it. Why I say that I know it from my friends, because I didn't do the second part of the exam. I applied for the exemption from the SQE2 and got the exemption, and that's how I ended up with a solicitor's qualification.
Yeah, and I know about your exemption because it is one of the reasons why we reconnected in the Netherlands. Yes, I was making some research on applying for a solicitor qualification. I knew about this exemption rule, and I wanted to apply for this exemption, and I was searching for consultation how to do it properly. I found Varvara, who successfully got exemption from this SQ2, and right now she will tell a little bit about it. Tell us who can qualify for this exemption, because I think it's really cool when you can pass one part of exam and you can skip the other one, because both of them are stressful and costs.
Yeah, that's, I think with the second part, of course, the costs are high, but the amount of stress is insane. if you can get an exemption, please do. So I'll tell a bit more about the exemption process. SRA recognizes that certain jurisdictions train their lawyers in a way that is compatible to what a solicitor should be able to practice and should know. There are agreed exemptions, so-called. It means that lawyers from those countries definitely have those skills. Therefore, the process of exemption is almost automatic. For example, a Dutch lawyer could apply to get an agreed exemption from the SQE2, and that process would be
like advocate, right? Which is bar admitted.
Yes, exactly. Bar admitted Dutch advocate would apply and get it. Well, I'm not sure how automatic, but it's a relatively easy process because the skills of Dutch lawyers are somehow already known to the Solicitors Regulation Authority. For other countries, there are individual exemptions, meaning that there's no automatic recognition of skills, but you can apply to the SRA and prove that you have those. The challenge, of course, not everyone, like you need to have a certain degree from that specific country. So per country, there is a list of degrees that are allowed to apply for exemption. It's an individual-based exemption. Basically, there is no like strict process formalities. Like it varies per person. It's actually, now that I work with clients consulting basically other lawyers on how to get qualified, I see that in many jurisdictions it's a similar situation to what we have. Of course, it's post-Soviet countries and some other jurisdictions which recognize the same difference between a lawyer who is more of a trial lawyer, let's say, and those which are not. However, the difference here is that a difference from, for example, the Dutch system is that we're all trained in the same process. So the distinction, like we have all the skills which are the same. People who work in-house and then who go to, work on criminal cases, we acquired the same set of skills because our education is built this way that we have all those skills. And that's why we can apply for an exemption. Because the second part of the exam is the test of the skills, not of the knowledge. So that
and basically you're curing this specific knowledge of specific legal jurisdiction by preparing to the exam, which is SQ1. I think England and Wales allowed international lawyers to be admitted because they put a very high threshold saying if you want to be considered as a solicitor, you need to know the law. Please pass the SQA1. If you pass it, okay, you prove that you know the law. And the second part, you need to prove the skills as you have acquired the skills. And as you mentioned, the skills are pretty much universal. Writing, drafting, consulting, presenting some court cases. Of course, there are different specifics, traditions, etc. But you can acquire them, and most of the core skills you acquired during your experience in legal profession. I also wanted to share my observations regarding this exemption rule. When I checked how I shall prove and what documents I need to collect in order to prove, I was terrified and shocked because it's so detailed, and you need to have very saved drafts, copies of documents, and everything you did within the last decade in order to show the skills for commission and in order to get this exemption. It seems it was your main pain and this issue which you were facing by yourself because you had to collect all these documents. Somehow you successfully made it independently, and afterwards you began proposing a hand to people saying, hey guys, if you need help, you can contact me. And I will bring these contacts down in this video. So if people really searching for SQ2 exemption, if you're allowed within the specific jurisdiction to apply for SQ2, I think the approach is very similar. Varvara completed it very well, successfully. She knows how to do it. She did it herself.
Another thing to mention right away, because the exemption is called individual exemption, even if there are certain the experience I can share and some other people perhaps too. There are some tips and tricks, but the SRA assessment is purely individual based. So what was accepted for one person might not go for another person. And there's no way to challenge this because it's not an agreed exemption, route.
Yeah.
So in this way, it's unfortunately like in a way unpredictable, and that just something we have to deal with. The process, I think, was quite difficult for me because I didn't have any guidance. Basically, the SRA website is helpful in a way that it indeed lists the documents, but the requirements and all the documents that you need to submit are drafted. The list is drafted from the perspective that you are a recent graduate who has, well, 2 years experience that is required. Only 2 years are required. And then you're like, it doesn't have certain local specifics, let's say.
Yeah.
So I've decided I'll try and see what happens. If not, then I would go for the SQE2. And that approach also helps when like it wasn't a deal breaker for me. I thought I will try and let's see how it works.
Yeah.
The whole process in the end took me, I think, over 8 months. Of course, it wasn't 8 months of drafting and preparing documents, but it was a lot of waiting because the SRA is busy and they have lots of things to do and deal with. And another thing to add is that at the moment when I applied for the exemption, I tried finding someone who's gone through this process, and I found like there's a rumor that one person did it, but I could never get his or her name. So it was just
By the way, it's like
mysterious.
It was really mysterious because when I was searching contacts, I was searching for firms which helps to collect all necessary documents in order to show commission that like I can be admitted for this exemption from SQ2. But there were not much contacts of such. I think there was like maybe one firm which I found, and everybody was saying that probably 90% you will be refused for this application because it's very hard to prove that you are qualified for exemption. Like, if there is possibility to have this exemption, why not to try? We need to find this person, and I found you, luckily, right? I think it's an amazing qualification, especially if you're a foreign trained lawyer and you want to level up your career and open the doors for some job positions. I think it's great, and you need to go for it if you're aiming for European or UK or international law firms, in-house legal roles, etc. First of all, you need to pay exam fees. Let's presume that you don't have exemption for SQ2. Total amount for just apply and register for exam will cost up to, for the both part of the exam, up to 6,000 euros, around, a little bit less. Moreover, you need prepare to it, right? There are available some prep courses on the market, and prices go from 3 to 6 and 7,000 euros for prep courses.
Yeah, and you do need those prep courses.
Yeah,
they are a must.
I think it's practically impossible, especially if, for example, you're full-time employed, right? To prepare it by yourself, even, of course, and it really depends. You need to also calculate some fees for visa, if you need it, for staying, flights. Yeah, the amounts can be up to 3 to 4,000 euros, and it really depends, right, from where you have flight. So, and the total amount of all this exam fees, prep course, and some travel costs, total amount can be up to 15,000 euros. The good news that you don't need to have all this amount at one moment. It's not like a prompt payment. You're paying your exam fees closer to the date. So you really need to be sure whether it will benefit your career because it's not a small amount of money.
Yeah, I agree. It's quite costly. And if you think that you can save on preparation, for example, you can technically, although I really think that the courses are very, very helpful. I had the QLTS one, and I cannot stress how helpful that was. But definitely costs are a consideration. If you can have some sort of agreement with your employer on covering at least part of the qualification costs, it of course would be amazing.
Yeah.
Otherwise, just make a cost-benefit analysis of what you would hope to achieve with a qualification.
I think it's also like biggest misconception that as soon as you get solicitor qualification, everybody in London is waiting for you and offering you job or like opportunities with a high salary, etc. It's not guaranteed. You can land it, you cannot. I mean, it's
Absolutely.
like, yeah. And also you should understand that you compete with local British taught lawyers.
Yeah.
And very often native speakers.
Absolutely.
So basically, if you're a foreign trained lawyer, it's my personal opinion, you really need to understand in what like law, specific law, you can be one of the best, where you can compete.
Yeah.
In what environment it would be, whether it will be law firm or in-house role, what sector, technology, medicine, etc. You really need to be very strategic in order to be successful and to compete with native speakers, with local trained, educated lawyers. Just come get solicitor qualification without no strategy. I think it's like, it's failure.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. It's one of the, because we're discussing the negative sides, and I think that's one of them, is that this is not a sort of golden ticket. It's of course great to acquire knowledge at any stage in life, also as like a professional. It's great to get through this process, but don't look at the qualification as a path to any job, especially in the UK, because everyone specialized in the field, and the recruiters there, they understand that there are solicitors and there are solicitors. They look at also like actual work experience. As you mentioned, other factors are important, but they also see that there are those who practice this law on a daily basis. And well, I have a qualification now, but the number of times I resort to English law in a week or in a month, it's minimal. So that's also, part of struggle. So don't look at it as once you have this, all the doors are open. Especially another important thing that we haven't discussed is that with the qualification, you acquire extra responsibilities. And I think that's actually why some employers require also a qualification, is that, well, the qualifications come with certain
code of ethics.
Yeah, exactly. Code of ethics, and ethical part of the exam and the SQ route is very prominent. Like you actually have to solve ethical dilemmas and look at ethical considerations when you prepare. And that standard is quite high. And it's it comes with a title. The standard is high. Like you, maybe it's also set extra high because of the path that you've come to acquire qualification. Like I have to admit that I think extra hard nowadays of if I agree to give advice on the matters that I'm not qualified to give, but I always think a bit extra, because I understand that there's this background that comes with me, that I'm responsible towards the Solicitors Regulation Authority. I'm responsible to basically the whole baggage of ethical considerations that come with a qualification. So bear that in mind.
Yeah, I want to go to my favorite part of questions. So, Varvara, if you wake up and you're suddenly the lead character in a legal drama, which character and in what show would you be?
Interesting question, considering that I don't really watch that many legal dramas, because I think I've had enough in my career in real life, and not on. I don't want to see it in my free time on TV. But something that actually is from a recent movie that I watched. There's this recent movie by Clint Eastwood called Juror Number 2. In that particular movie, the situation, like the ethical dilemma that the characters face, and basically the law enforcement authority character faces, I would want to maybe try that, especially in the fake setting where I don't actually have to live with that burden, because it's quite a troubled situation. I would want to be in that movie. I'm not sure in which capacity. Hopefully not the person who committed the crime.
Okay.
But check it out. The movie is very interesting.
Okay, nice. So basically, it sounds like a little bit like with criminal.
It is a criminal
vibe, right?
case, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
But that's why, at least it's something interesting, because I don't get to see it in my practice, because I don't do any criminal law.
So I will get a link to description of this video. So by recommendations of Varvara, please watch it and share your insights. What role would you like to have there? I see you like in the role of either prosecutor or like attorney, but let's save it for later. Okay, another question. An alien lands and wants to understand justice. And you can show only one example, case, whatever. Which one do you pick?
I think the best idea would be to leave right away, because I don't think we live in a place where justice can be found anywhere. If I have to find an example, it would be some proceedings in high court, because some cases there, one of the famous example would be some of like Russian oligarch disputes that were settled there. Because I would mention something like maybe Abramovich disputes there.
Okay.
Because it's really a great piece of literature. The judgments there, they are, they're a pleasure to read. It's such a like in-depth analysis of both law and facts and even history sometimes, because what judges need to analyze is quite deep. So maybe I would have a look at that. But then again, it has very little to do with justice.
It's really interesting insight from you, considering that you have very extensive experience in arbitration. And like you're saying, hey, guys, if you want to really see, look up for this case. And I will, with your help, I will attach some links if somebody is interested, just to look up for it. Let's share knowledge.
Excited.
Yeah, thank you for participating in my podcast, sharing your experience. It was very valuable. And you have an amazing legal background, career, qualifications, skills, beauty, mind. And thank you for coming and being my guest. I really appreciate it, Varvara.
Thank you
so much.
I wish all the best to your podcast and many, many more followers and views, because the idea that you have is amazing.
Great.
So develop it.
Thank you so much. Thank you for listening to my podcast. If you like it, please subscribe and like this video. If you don't, whatever. We're basically in Amsterdam, in Netherlands, and this beautiful site, it was specifically chosen by me in order to show you how this country is beautiful. Keep it in touch, and bye.